Hello, my name is Faith. I'm 20 years old and I'm from Wexford. So I grew up in a Catholic family with my parents, my older sister and my two younger brothers. Just a bit of backstory on my parents. So they weren't always practicing their faith. In his youth, my dad, who's a real lad's lad, he really liked going out drinking and partying and doing all kinds of things that your parents don't want you to do. He didn't really have an interest in God at all or religion. He kind of just cared about working and drinking. My mum, like my dad, was also kind of a wild one. They lived very similar ways. She loved to go out with the girls drinking and going to the club. They lived a life without God as their focus. But through God's grace and the prayers from my grandmothers, my parents went to a place called Medjugorje. And when they were there, they had a huge conversion. My dad always says that you should never underestimate the power of a mother's prayer. So he ended up having a spiritual experience with our Blessed Mother in Medjugorje, which then led them to start living their lives more centered around God. My dad started a men's group in our house, and my mom helped to organise Life in the Spirit retreats in my home. Because they were new enough to the faith, they were also trying to learn while also teaching us and helping us grow in our faith as well. I remember being kind of around 6 years old when we would kind of started to say the rosary, which for my parents composed of deep contemplative prayer, and for me it was doing cartwheels around the room. We would also go to Mass as well with my parents just every Sunday. And my parents, they prayed a lot and they really understood the Mass, and I was doing cartwheels in my head. That was kind of all I kind of had until we started getting invited to go to prayer meetings. My parents would go to those, and me and my siblings would just kind of tolerate going because we didn't really enjoy it. We kind of just sat in another room while my parents prayed. It was very weird for me to do these kind of things, especially because, as far as I knew, I was the only person in my village, young person in my village, who was doing these things. I didn't really care or know why I was doing the things. It didn't really penetrate me. I just did it because I was told to do it. I went to a Catholic primary school, and there we were told about this God from the Old Testament, and how he was loving and he was kind. But then when I went to Mass, the God that I saw was angry and a bit unpredictable. I kind of felt that very disconnected from God. I felt that God was up here and I was down here, and he didn't really have a role in my life. He was just there. But I believed in him and I knew he was there. It's just felt that, there is this disconnection between us, that he stayed where he was and I stayed where I was. So I really struggled with school and friends. As a person, when I love really hard. And with the people in school, that love was taken for granted. And I didn't receive that love back. I saw myself as not enough, or that I was missing something. And I had a huge fear of rejection. So that kind of led to me becoming a people pleaser. I was always doing my best not to upset anyone and trying to make everyone else feel comfortable in themselves. Well, that kind of came at the cost of me thinking that I wasn't enough. I always felt very different to everyone else, and I felt that I was kind of always second best. I was never anyone's first choice. For a long time, I couldn't figure out why I was treated differently. I just knew that I stood out. I ended up putting that down to the fact that my family was the only family with young kids who actually practiced their faith. So I was very embarrassed at that fact. The fact that we went to Mass, the fact that we said the rosary, and that my dad had a prayer meeting. I remember there was this one time where we were at training. I play camogie, so we were at training and our coaches were trying to organise a match, but it was during Holy Week, and one of the coaches said oh, does anyone know what time Mass is on Thursday, on Holy Thursday? And one of the girls on my team said, oh, ask Faith, she's the nun of the village, she'll know what time it was at. And I was so embarrassed that I was like, no, I don't know what time it's at. No, I don't. No, not me, I'm not holy. I don't know what time it's at. But I actually did, and it was at 8 o'clock, and it was really embarrassing. That was kind of aged 8 to 14. So I was kind of pretty rough friends-wise, kind of wasn't really sure who I was. So then I went to secondary school, and in January of first year, I just turned 14. I was just about settled into school, and my little brother, who was 4 at the time, was diagnosed with leukemia. He had cancer. All 14-year-old me could think was, no, like, this shouldn't happen to people like me. This only happens to people in the movies. So that really turned my life upside down. My parents were in and out of the hospital with Joey, my brother. And me and my brother and sister, we were going from house to house, from our aunt's house to our friends' houses to our nan's houses. So we weren't always together. Me and my sister were, because we were in the same secondary school, but my brother stayed in the village because he was still in primary. So I was away from my family for a good part of my time in secondary school. While all this was happening, I was in a new school, a school without any of the people I knew from primary school. So I was learning to fit in all over again. I still had this same mentality of people pleasing and not having, I had a lack of dignity, along with the fact that I had this fear of rejection at the same time. I started to go to things like discos, because that was just the normal for Irish teenagers to start going to these things. And there I was doing the same thing with everyone else that everyone else was doing, because all the things that they were doing were what's normal and what makes you fit in, what makes you not the religious one. And I liked getting the attention because I wanted somebody to choose me and to care about me and to be first choice for somebody. Our parents were very good at reminding us during Joseph's sickness to keep praying and asking God to heal Joey. One night they went to the hospital with Joey because he was getting a lot worse. And although he was being tube fed and he lost a lot of weight and he kept getting infections, I remember starting to pray to God and say, Lord, please, if there is any way that you can take the cancer from Joey and give it to me. He doesn't understand that everything that is happening to him, all the medication and the procedures, are to make him better. But Jesus, at least if I had it, things would be easier and he wouldn't have to go through all this. For me, that was the first time that I can remember ever praying to Jesus, especially in just a personal way from the depths of my heart. But Jesus didn't give me the cancer, and my brother went through all the treatment that he needed to get better, but his condition actually worsened. He was pretty much skin and bone, and he hadn't eaten in weeks or moved in weeks. My mom describes it as he lost his fight, because he was a fighter. At home, word spread that Joey was really sick, so my village all came together and they prayed and they sang and they interceded for 3 hours at a prayer vigil for him, that God would heal him, save him, just do something for him. We hear these stories of miraculous healings and how they're all over the world and they happen to so many people, and how people are cured in that second, just with the snap of God's fingers. That's it, they're cured, they've nothing, they've completely been healed. The next day, Joey, this is after the prayer vigil, Joey asked my mum if he could have tea and toast and also move into the bed with her out of his hospital bed. Although his cancer wasn't completely gone and he still had lots of rough times ahead of him, this was a huge deal for us in our family because Joey had got his fight back. Joseph is now a beautiful, healthy and crazy, nearly 11-year-old boy. That was the day that I knew that God really was a loving and merciful Father. Not some scary man in the clouds telling us what to do and what not to do. So I started to want to know about this new perspective of God that I had. Because in my head I was thinking, well, he must be a good God who loves my brother, and if he loves my brother, maybe he loves me too. My sister invited me to a retreat run by Youth 2000, and there I heard testimonies which really put into perspective for me a real life experience of a relationship with Christ. I heard talks about God and how he is our Father, and fathers love us with all their hearts. And everyone just kept talking about a gentle, kind, loving friend. For me, I was trying to build this connection between the God I've been hearing about in the Mass readings and this God they were telling me about how he really does have an effect on my life. Youth 2000 showed me a different way of looking at God in the Old Testament. It taught me that everything God does is out of love for us, and he is not the one making bad things happen, but he is the one who picks up our broken pieces and turns them into something beautiful. While at Youth 2000, I went to adoration and confession, and the more I learned about the faith, the more conviction I started to feel. I felt called to have a personal relationship with Christ. So I ended up moving schools in my 4th year of school to get away from the environment that I felt stuck in, the one that I couldn't grow in, and the one I was learning to balance my life with my friends and the things that came with that. For me, that was going out to the pubs, smoking and drinking, while also trying to understand that I had this desire to know God, and that I was wondering how both of these lives could work together. Spoiler alert, they don't. I kept on looking for this love, this investment that I had imagined in other people. My family were really encouraging for me, and they really helped me to go to more Catholic things like Youth 2000. At this kind of stage of my life, my sister had decided to give a year here at Holy Family Mission. I didn't really know much about Holy Family, but whenever Grace came home, I noticed small changes in her. She seemed happier, and that there was something different about her. I really couldn't figure out what it was, but all I knew it was because of whatever she was doing here in Holy Family, and that made me really want to go here. My family became very, very close with another Catholic family, and they had a huge influence on my journey in my faith, and especially in my personal life. They showed me what a truly Christ-centered friendship looked like, and how we really are meant to love, and how we really are meant to be loved, and that you can be loved without having to earn it or having to be anything other than yourself. They invited me to go to their youth group in Dublin, a JP2 youth group in Shankill, and there I started to fully develop my relationship with Jesus. Having grown up in a house practicing the faith, it did make things a lot easier. There was no fear of showing that you had a relationship with Christ, as well as having friends like that family in Dublin who were encouraging me on in my faith as well. As I had started going to more of these Catholic things, I found that environment was really a safe environment, and it really showed me that I have to start to realize what my dignity is and what my worth is. This was highlighted a lot when I went back to school by an experience I had with one of the girls in my friend group. She spoke to me in a very disrespectful way, and usually I would have just kind of had to try keep the peace and put up with the behaviour at the time, but I decided to challenge her, and even though it cost me the friendship, it helped me realise that I didn't want to be in relationships or friendships at the cost of my dignity. It was this, along with other experiences, to help me to make better decisions on who I spent my time with. And I was no longer trying to people please. And I was really sick of putting on this mask, and it was just so exhausting to have to try hold this mask up all the time. Along with this, I also decided, instead of trying to balance my faith and my friends, that I was going to choose my faith over everything else. I later became a leader at the youth group that I went to in Dublin, which led me to realising that I wasn't as educated in my faith as I wanted to be. I didn't really know how to learn more about my faith. All I know is that I knew that I wasn't able to do it on my own. So I had like a huge desire to want to know more about the faith so that I was able to share it with people. And then the idea of Holy Family came up again. I knew that I wanted to do something like Holy Family, but I wasn't sure if the Lord wanted me to do Holy Family itself. So I started exploring other options. I was really interested in the formation side of things, but I was also felt really called to mission. I went to a retreat in a mission house called Craig Lodge to see if that would be something God wanted me to do. And while I was there, the Lord revealed to me that he wanted me to give him a year. And he revealed this through a scripture, through his word, through the scripture. It was Isaiah 61:2, proclaim the year of the Lord's favour. I prayed a lot and I discerned a lot, and I decided that Holy Family was where the Lord was calling me to. And now here we are. I'm in Holy Family and I'm up giving my testimony. I no longer see God as someone who is cold and far away or disconnected, because I know and I believe that he loves me and he is a part of every single second of my life, and that his hand is in everything I do. He is helping me to get over my fears and anxieties, my need to people please, my fear of rejection, of upsetting people, of being second best, because I know who I am in him and that he chooses me every day. He wants this for us all, but we have to give our full committed yes to him. I want to say thank you to my parents for exposing me to God and to really just encouraging me to do Holy Family and encouraging me on in my faith journey. And also to all the people who helped me to come to Holy Family, everyone who sponsored me to come here. To Father Jamie Tuhig, because he is incredible and he's the leader, the main priest for the youth group in Dublin. And to the O'Shea family for helping me to show me a true Christ-centered friendship.